Be me, Jessica, 29, newly promoted floor supervisor at Cascade Ridge Logistics, a third-party distribution warehouse just outside Portland that handles outdoor equipment for REI, Cabela's, Dick's Sporting Goods, all the big names. I'd worked my way up from the admin office over 3 years, finished my degree at night, business management, Portland State, and finally cracked into leadership when the company got bought out by a larger corp that wanted diverse perspectives in management. Growing up, my dad drove trucks and my mum cleaned houses. I was the first one in my family to get a degree, and I wasn't about to waste it. I'd proven I was smarter than the guys who just showed up, clocked in, and complained. I'd earned this. The warehouse itself was about 25,000 square feet of concrete floors, metal shelving, and the constant beep of forklifts. I supervised a crew of 12, all guys, ages ranging from early 20s to late 50s. Most of them were fine. A few were resistant to change. It was the monthly team meeting where things started. We were crammed into the break room, fluorescent lights humming, folding tables, half the crew in work boots propped on chairs. I stood at the front with my laptop, presenting the new productivity targets from corporate, 15% increase in throughput, no additional labor budget. Predictable groans. Tyler, this kid in his mid-20s with a vape pen always clipped to his belt, raised his hand. The pallet jack's been broken for like 2 weeks. When's that getting fixed? Devon, early 30s, chimed in. And the new shipments are heavier than usual. Lots of gym equipment instead of the camping gear. It's killing our backs. I took a breath, kept my tone professional. Look, I get it. Change is uncomfortable. But let's be real. How hard is it, actually? Women half your size do this work in developing countries every single day. I studied abroad in Vietnam, saw women at the markets carrying loads that would put us to shame. Maybe if we focused less on complaining and more on efficiency, we'd hit these targets no problem. The room went quiet. A few guys exchanged glances. Then Mike spoke up. Mike was 53, been at Cascade Ridge since before the buyout. Quiet guy, weathered face, the kind of person who rarely said anything unless it mattered. When he did talk, people listened. Jessica, he said, voice calm and even, with respect, you don't know what you're talking about. I felt my face get hot. Excuse me? We're not complaining to complain, he continued. The equipment's breaking down and the loads are heavier. That's just facts. You can look at the manifest yourself. I forced a smile. Mike, I appreciate your experience, but I've reviewed the metrics. The weights haven't changed significantly. What's changed is the mindset. We need to adapt, or... Have you ever worked a floor shift? He interrupted. Silence. I blinked. That's not the point. Management requires... That is the point, Mike said, still calm, still respectful, but firm. You're asking us to do more with less, saying it's easy, but you've never done it yourself. The crew was watching now. Tyler smirked. Devon looked down at his phone. I straightened. I don't need to have done every job to manage effectively, Mike. That's not how leadership works. He nodded slowly, like he'd expected that answer. Fair enough. The meeting ended shortly after. I went back to my office and stewed, typing up an email to corporate about resistance from legacy crew members and the need for cultural alignment. Mike was old school, probably threatened by having a woman in charge. I dealt with guys like him before, hiding behind experience to avoid accountability. I told myself he'd come around. 4 days later, everything went sideways. Wednesday morning, I got 2 call-out texts within an hour of each other. Devon was out with the flu. Tyler, ironically, had thrown his back out moving furniture at home over the weekend. I actually laughed when I read that one. If he can't handle moving a couch, maybe he's not cut out for warehouse work. Then, at 9 a.m., Carlos radioed from the floor. Hey, Jessica, the electric pallet jack just died. Hydraulic line burst. There's fluid everywhere. I walked out to the dock. Sure enough, the main pallet jack, our workhorse, the one that did 80% of the heavy lifting, was sitting in a puddle of hydraulic fluid, completely dead. We had one backup, an old manual pallet jack, the kind you pump with your foot like some medieval torture device. Mike found me 20 minutes later. "We've got the Kabbalah shipment due Friday," he said, standing in the doorway of my office. Behind him, I could see the dock, stacks of incoming freight already piling up. 240 boxes, average 60 to 70 pounds each, some up to 90. With 2 guys out and no electric jack, we need either overtime approval for the weekend crew or temp workers through Thursday. I pulled up the budget spreadsheet. Corporate had already flagged our department for overspend last month. If I approved overtime now, I'd be over budget by 12% for the quarter. "Mike," I said carefully, "we can't keep running to overtime every time something breaks. What did crews do before electric pallet jacks existed?" His jaw tightened slightly. "We had 6 guys instead of 4, and we were younger." "Women do this work all over the world without complaining," I said. "I've seen it. Markets in Hanoi, construction sites in Thailand, women carrying 100-pound loads on their backs, no machines, no complaints." "Jessica," Mike started, but I kept going. "I'm not approving overtime. You've got 4 guys and 2 days. Divide the work, take breaks, figure it out. This is exactly the kind of efficiency problem corporate wants us solving." Mike stared at me for a long moment. Then he said, very quietly, "You think it's that easy? I think you're capable of more than you give yourself credit for." He shook his head. "You've never moved a single box in this building. You have no idea what you're asking." Something snapped in me. Maybe it was the condescension in his tone. Maybe it was the way the crew had been pushing back on every initiative I rolled out. Either way, I was done being questioned. "Fine," I said, standing up. "You know what? I'll prove it. I'll cover Devon's shift Friday. Myself. If I can handle it, we can stop pretending this is impossible." Mike's expression didn't change. "Jessica, Friday morning, 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. I'll be on the floor. We'll see how impossible it really is." He studied me for a moment, then nodded slowly. "All right, your call." He walked out. I sat back down, heart pounding. The moment the door closed, I felt a flutter of nerves, but I pushed it down. I wasn't being reckless. I'd done yoga for 5 years, could hold a plank for 2 minutes, hiked the Columbia Gorge every weekend with a weighted pack. How different could warehouse work really be? Plus, this was perfect. Prove the work wasn't that hard, shut down the complaining, show corporate. I was a hands-on leader who wasn't afraid to get in the trenches. Win-win-win. I checked the calendar. I'd told Mike Friday, but the actual shift I'd cover was in 13 days. I'd fudged the scheduling slightly to give myself time to prepare. That evening, sitting in my apartment staring at my laptop, the nerves came back. I Googled how to prepare for physical labor and found a bunch of articles about functional fitness, core strength, lifting techniques. I texted my friend Amber. "Need your help. Long story. Brunch." Sunday morning, I met Amber and Lena at Tin Shed, this trendy spot we'd been going to for years. Amber taught HIIT and yoga at a boutique gym downtown. Athletic build, always in Lululemon. Genuinely one of the sweetest people I knew. Lena worked in tech marketing, more skeptical and pragmatic, less into the fitness scene. I explained the situation over avocado toast and mimosas. I framed it carefully. Sexist crew challenged me to prove women can do their jobs. Amber's eyes lit up. "Oh my God, yes! This is amazing! You're literally dismantling the patriarchy from the inside." Lena raised an eyebrow. "Wait, have you ever done manual labor? Like, actual heavy lifting for hours? I mean, I move furniture, I hike with a weighted pack. That's not the same as 8 hours of..." Amber cut her off. "She's got almost 2 weeks. We can train for this. I'll help. Functional fitness, core strength, deadlifts. You'll be fine." I felt relief wash over me. Amber made sense. Strength wasn't some mystical thing men were born with. It was trainable, If I could build muscle and endurance over the next 12 days, I'd be set. Plus, this was only one shift, 8 hours. I'd done longer hikes. You really think I can do this? I asked. Amber grabbed my hand across the table. Babe, you can do anything. You just need the right training. We started that Monday. Amber took me to her CrossFit gym. All exposed brick and garage doors, motivational quotes painted on the walls, the smell of rubber and sweat. She put me through what she called a functional strength circuit. Kettlebell swings with a 20-pound bell, goblet squats with 25 pounds, farmer's carries with 20 pounds in each hand, and deadlifts starting at 65 pounds. I struggled, my hands cramped, my core burned. But I finished. See? Amber said, grinning as I bent over, gasping. You're stronger than you think. I drove home, sore but accomplished. That night, I posted a gym selfie. Nothing obnoxious, just me, mid-plank with a simple caption, "Strength isn't given, it's built." Got 83 likes. By Wednesday, we ran the circuit again. This time, I managed the deadlifts at 95 pounds for 5 reps. Amber cheered. Muscle adaptation happens fast if you're consistent. I started to feel genuinely confident. My core was stronger, my grip better. The weights that felt impossible on Monday were manageable now. I could feel my body changing, adapting. Maybe I really could do this. Friday, 2 days before the shift, we did one final prep session. Amber added loaded carries. I walked 50 feet with 30 pounds in each hand. My forearms screamed, but I did it. Honestly, Amber said as we stretched afterward, you're going to crush this. Just remember to lift with your legs, not your back. That night, I laid out my work clothes, athletic leggings, moisture-wicking shirt, my hiking boots, set 3 alarms, did a mental inventory of everything I'd learned, engage your core, hinge at the hips, keep the weight close to your body, breathe. I'd trained, I'd prepared. I wasn't naive. I knew it would be hard. But I also knew the crew was watching for me to fail, and I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction. I slept poorly, but I told myself it was just adrenaline. Friday morning, 5:45 a.m. I pulled into the Cascade Ridge parking lot in the pre-dawn darkness. The warehouse was lit up inside, loading dock doors open, and I could see the crew already moving around. Mike's truck was there, so was Ryan's, early 40s, former college football player, solid build. And Carlos, 28, wiry but strong. 4 of us total for the day. I sat in my car for a moment, changing into the work boots I'd bought earlier that week. Brand new Red Wings, stiff and unbroken. I laced them tight and walked across the lot to the dock. Mike was standing near a pallet stacked with boxes. He nodded when he saw me. Morning? Morning, I said, trying to sound casual. Ryan and Carlos glanced at me, but didn't say anything. The vibe was neutral, not hostile, but not friendly either. They were waiting. Mike handed me a pair of work gloves. I'd forgotten to bring my own. Cabela's shipment, he said, gesturing at the pallet. 240 boxes, docked to staging area, then sorted by SKU. Let's get started. I pulled the gloves on and approached the pallet. The first box was labeled Bowflex Select Tech 552 dumbbells, 52.5 pounds each. I bent down, gripped the sides of the cardboard box, no handles, just flat edges, and lifted. It wasn't the weight, exactly. It was the awkwardness. The box was bulky, unbalanced, and the weight shifted inside when I lifted it. Nothing like the neat, rubberized dumbbells at the gym or the balanced barbell. My grip slipped immediately. I adjusted, tried again, got it to chest height, and shuffled toward the staging area 30 feet away. My forearms were already burning by the time I set it down. 1 box, 239 to go. By box 3, I was sweating. By box 8, my hands were cramping inside the gloves. By box 12, I had to stop and catch my breath. I checked the time, 6:32 a.m. I'd moved 12 boxes in 47 minutes. Across the dock, Mike, Ryan, and Carlos had collectively moved over 60. I told myself I just needed to find my rhythm. By 7:15, my new boots were giving me blisters on both heels. I didn't have band-aids. I kept working. The boxes varied wildly in weight. Some were 45 pounds, camp stoves. Others were 70 plus, weight benches. Every single one was awkward to grip, awkward to carry, awkward to stack. At 8 o'clock, we took our first official break. 15 minutes. I collapsed onto the loading dock, chugging water from the bottle I'd brought. My hands were shaking. Ryan walked past me carrying 2 boxes at once, something I'd tried earlier, and nearly dropped both. I told myself the first hour was always the hardest, that I just needed to pace myself better. By 9:30, my lower back was screaming. I remembered Amber's advice, lift with your legs, but my legs were already toast from squatting 240 times. I started rounding my back when I lifted because I was too tired to maintain proper form. At some point around 10 o'clock, I stopped tracking individual boxes. Everything blurred together. Bend, grip, lift, shuffle, set down, repeat. My brain kept trying to calculate how many I had left, but the math made me want to cry, so I stopped. I noticed things I'd never paid attention to before. The way Ryan bent his knees deeper than I did. How Carlos used his whole body to pivot instead of twisting at the waist. The rhythm Mike had, steady, mechanical, no wasted movement. They made it look easy because they'd done it 10,000 times. I'd done it 80 times, and my body was shutting down. My hands were so swollen inside the gloves, I couldn't make a proper fist anymore. The blisters on my heels had broken open and were sticking to my socks. Every box felt 10 pounds heavier than the last one. I wasn't even halfway through the shift. Carlos noticed. "Hey Jessica, what's your form? You're going to hurt yourself." I waved him off, breathless. "I'm fine." At 10:45, a delivery driver showed up. Mid-30s guy, chatty type. He pulled up to the dock in a semi, saw me struggling with a box of kettlebells, my face red, arms visibly shaking. "They got you doing the grunt work today, huh?" he said, not unkindly. "Cute effort. Usually it's the big guys out here." I set the box down harder than I meant to. Didn't respond. By 11:20, I'd been working for 5.5 hours. I reached for another box, Concept 2 rower, 57 pounds, and bent to lift it. Routine. I'd done this motion 100 times already that morning, but my grip was gone. My core was fatigued. I wasn't paying attention. The box slipped. I overcompensated, twisted to catch it, and felt something pop in my lower back. Not agony, but sharp. Immediate. Wrong. I set the box down, barely, and stood there breathing hard. Mike saw it from across the dock. He walked over. "You all right?" "Yeah," I lied. "Just tweaked something." "Take a break." I said I'm fine. I tried to lift the next box. I couldn't. Physically could not bend down and lift without the pain spiking up my spine. I stood there, staring at the box, feeling the crew's eyes on me. At 11:40, I limped to the office and called the shift supervisor hotline. Reported that I was feeling ill and needed to leave early. I avoided eye contact with everyone as I walked to my car. Mike caught me in the parking lot. "You did more than I expected," he said quietly. No gloating, just calm. "But this is what we deal with every day. It's not about being weak, it's about reality." I wanted to argue, to defend myself. "The equipment's broken," I said, voice tight. "The boxes were heavier than normal. If we had the pallet jack..." "We've been asking for the pallet jack for 3 weeks. Silence. "Go home," Mike said. "Ice your back. We'll finish the shipment." I drove home in silence, hands gripping the steering wheel, eyes burning. By noon, I was lying on my apartment floor with an ice pack under my lower back, staring at the ceiling. The damage report, blisters on both heels, bleeding through my socks, hands covered in scratches and popped blisters, lower back spasming every time I tried to sit up, pulled muscle in my right shoulder, bruise on my left shin from dropping a box, total boxes moved, approximately 80, crew average per person per shift, over 200. I wanted to cry. I wanted to scream. Mostly, I just lay there, feeling my entire body throb, replaying the delivery driver's words in my head. Cute effort. Around 3 p.m., I texted Amber. I couldn't do it. I failed. She called immediately. I told her everything. The pain, the humiliation, the crew barely helping, Mike's calm acceptance of my defeat. "Oh my God, Jess, I'm so sorry," Amber said, genuinely sympathetic. "I really thought the training would help." "It wasn't enough," I said, voice breaking. "It wasn't even close. I moved 80 boxes and they moved 200. I couldn't even last the full shift." "You tried," Amber offered. "That counts for something." "Does it?" I asked. I told them it was easy. I told them they were exaggerating. And they were right. Mike was right. Long pause. "So what are you going to do?" Amber asked. I didn't have an answer. I spent Saturday barely able to move. Ice, ibuprofen, heating pad rotation. I avoided my phone, avoided thinking about Monday. Sunday, I was still sore but mobile. I sat on my couch and forced myself to think about the last 2 weeks. The meeting, the challenge, Mike's warnings, my dismissiveness. That reference I'd used, the women in Vietnam, felt hollow now. Those women weren't doing it for one shift to prove a point. They did it because they had to, probably since childhood, bodies adapted over years. I'd cherry-picked an image to fit my worldview and ignored all the context. I'd been so sure I was right, that the crew was lazy, that gender was just a social construct, that strength was all mindset. And I wasn't completely wrong. Mindset mattered, but so did biology, so did experience, so did listening to people who actually knew what they were talking about. Monday morning, I arrived at the warehouse at 7:30, still limping slightly. Mike knocked on my office door at 7:45. "Can we talk?" I asked before he could say anything. He nodded and sat down. "I owe you an apology," I said. "I was dismissive, condescending, I didn't listen. You tried to tell me, and I made it about ego instead of actually hearing you." Mike studied me for a moment. "I appreciate that. I need you to know, I'm not against you," I continued, "or the crew. I just thought I was helping, pushing for efficiency, cutting costs. Corporate's breathing down my neck, and I took it out on you guys." "I get it," Mike said. "You're in a tough spot, but so are we." "I know that now." I took a breath. "I'm approving overtime for next week's shipment, and I'm escalating the pallet jack replacement to regional. If they won't budge, I'll request a meeting with the director and bring you with me. You know the equipment better than I do." Mike raised his eyebrows slightly. "You do that? I should have done it 3 weeks ago." He leaned back in his chair. "For what it's worth, you lasted longer than I thought you would. Most people wouldn't have even tried." I laughed, small and tired. "I'm not sure that's a compliment." Mike smiled faintly. "It is. You've got grit. You just needed to aim it in the right direction." He paused, then added, "I've got 2 daughters in college. One's studying engineering, the other's pre-med. I'm not against women doing hard jobs. I'm against people, anyone, pretending hard jobs aren't hard." I nodded. "I get it, and I won't make that mistake again." 3 weeks later, the new electric pallet jack arrived. I'd fought for it, pushed regional, got it approved. I started joining the crew for a partial morning shift once a month, not lifting boxes, but shadowing, learning the workflow, staying connected to what was actually happening on the floor. The crew started coming to me with issues earlier because they knew I'd listen now. Tyler told Carlos I was actually pretty cool for a manager. 6 weeks later, I still went to the gym with Amber, but now I did it for health, not validation. I understood the difference between fitness and functional labor strength. When corporate pushed new efficiency targets, I pushed back with data and crew input. I'm not going to pretend I'm one of them now. I'm still management. I still have metrics to hit, budgets to balance, corporate breathing down my neck. But I learned something that shift that no business degree could teach me. Respect isn't demanded, it's earned. And sometimes the strongest thing you can do is admit you were wrong.